But before we do that, when we go through these, it's really hard for me sometimes to listen to them and not understand the context of the people that are presenting. So I went to one, and the guy was like, he was sharing how he went full-time into real estate. And I'm like, all right, so this is gonna be awesome. He's gonna tell a story. And he had never had a W-2 job. He owned a business, he sold it. It was like, just like DoorDash, made millions, and he didn't have to work, and so he went full into real estate. So my context, if you wanna hit the next slide, is totally different. So my story is I've been a real estate investor for about 2.5 years. And as I started on the far right, kind of January 2020, but to get there, I listened to my first podcast October 2018. I joined NHREIA in March, so like a few months after I listened to my first podcast. I was under contract a few months after coming to my first 5 or 6 meetings, and then I closed on that property about 2 or 3 months after I was under contract. So January 2020 is when I owned my first property. That underneath there is COVID-19, so I bought my first property like right when COVID hit. I have a full-time W-2 job. I do like it, but I don't want to do it anymore. Right now, so I have 4 properties, I have 10 units. I have 3 triplexes in Manchester. I have 1 single family, that's this one in Nashua. I do self-manage. As far as like what I feel that I'm decent at is analysis. Like I love analyzing properties. I love setting goals. You'll see that on the next slide. I'm a really honest person. So, that's my New Year's resolution. I tell it to everybody. So if you ask me a question, I will answer honestly. So if you say, does this look good on me? I either will not answer or I will just tell you, right? And so if you ask me questions, I will give you the answer or I will tell you that I cannot be honest with you. And I enjoy the hustle. I love the hustle, and the real estate stuff has been just a ton of fun.
These pants make my butt look big.
You're pretty, you got a flat butt. It's like, your whole body style is just straight up and down. And I am a goal-driven person. So, like an example of this is that in my office, that white banner is actually a 10-year plan, and it's planned out by month. I know, I'm nuts. And literally every month I check the box. And I have short-term goals, my long-term goals at the end of the year. So that's just.
Close up of that?
Yeah, I can send you some on my phone too. It's legit. It's like every year, and I know where I am, so I know whether I'm ahead or behind schedule. When I buy a building, I have a goal where I say, like, this is the month at which I'm going to stabilize it. This is the cash flow it's going to get. I put a goal down to when I'm going to have my first FUR acquired and completed. So I have all that planned so that when I sit down at night and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and if I'm getting close, I go and I hit it. So my goals are $25,000 a monthly cash flow in 10 years, starting January 2020. My other goals are to get to a point where I don't think about buying like the price of something when I buy stuff daily on a monthly basis. So like I go to the store or my wife comes home and she comes home with like $15 organic chicken versus whatever else. Like I'm trying not to care about that, less than 5 times a month, and then never miss any of my kids' events. I did that like 2 months ago, and I'm just not doing that again. So this is my goal. That's where I'm starting from. So the house detail. So think of this house like this is the cat poop house, and some of you guys in here have been there. It is a 3-bed, 1-bath, 940 square feet. It's built in around 1900, so we all know that nobody knows when this was built. And it's on 0.04 acres, meaning like the square footage is like, I think that's like 1,700 square foot, or that's the lot size, right? So it's tiny. Bought in July 21, refinanced 6 months later in January 2022. It was an off-market deal. This was the black sheep of a portfolio sale, so somebody was unloading 48 properties, and there was this one that they knew was trouble, and they're like, well, we might sell that one separately because it was bad. Yeah.
How did you get the word on that black sheep?
So usually I don't like people. But I have a relationship with an agent, and I bought a building through her, and she just knew what I liked, and she came to me and said, I have a portfolio sale, are you interested? I'm like, I can't buy 48 units.
She knew you wanted the worst one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I love it. And so she came to me, and was like, hey, this one seems perfect for you, like the price, the price was right, and I'm like, yeah, I wasn't looking at the time, and I looked at my goal, I'm like, I'm supposed to find a burr by this date, and I bought it, because I knew when I run the numbers, I can show you a little bit of the analysis and how I did that, I knew it was gonna work. I might have some money left in the deal, but it was gonna be close. So I got it that way through a relationship, and I do like this agent.
Was it a traditional refi? Did you have any trouble with that?
I will get into that, and I didn't have any trouble. So my strategy for this one was to burr it, and if you're, I think my guess is most people know what that is, but if you don't, it is when you try to buy it, right, at a decent price, you rehab it to get it up to current conditions, and then that's kind of like almost like a flip at that point. And then what you try to do is you try to rent it out, and then you refinance with the bank to try to pull all of your investment out. The goal is to pull all of it out while still cash flowing, with the key being while still cash flowing, right? So I love analysis, so I built this tool and this matrix to show if rent was at a certain amount and it appraised at a certain amount, here's what my cash flow would be. So I knew if the ARV or after repair value was a certain amount and rent was a certain amount, this is what I would make. So I ran that and figured out where in that bucket I would be. I would be in that green, and that green's a good area for me. And that's how I knew it was gonna be something I want to buy. So the numbers, it costs $140,000, so this is a single family house in Nashville for $140,000. Again, it is on 1,700 square feet of land. But it was still a good deal. The rehab costs were $45,000, I estimated about 38, 39. Closing costs were like 4,000 or 5, these are just rough numbers, 4 or 5,000. The holding costs were about like 2,000 to 3,000. My mortgage on this was like $500 a month because it was a $140,000 house. Putting my total investment in it at around $191,000. I refied in January. It appraised at 272. I did a 75% loan to value. That means like they'll take 75% of the appraised value at 272, and they would give that to me back in cash. So that was $204,000. Say closing costs were $4,000. So I ended up at $204,000 back to me, $191,000 in my investment plus the $4,000 in closing costs. So I actually